I'd like to call to order the agenda for Thursday, March 6, 2025, held at 7 p.m., Wigan Auditorium, Planning Board meeting. First item of business is the approval of the minutes of the 2/20/25.
Chairman, I move to accept the minutes of the previous meeting.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? United. Thank you. A&R and Land Court, none. Site building permit plan reviews, 0 Hardy Street, map 85, lot 001. The applicant is Michael Becker. This was continued from the 2/20 meeting.
Mr. Chairman, John Kelty on behalf of the applicant, and I have a request that this matter be continued to the March 20th meeting, 2025.
Mr. Chairman, move to grant Attorney Kelty's request for an extension of time regarding 0 Harding Street.
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you.
Through the chair, could I, if you don't mind if I could ask the attorney a question regarding this? So what's going on? What's that? What's going on here, Jack? Is this thing going from 8 bays to 6 bays?
Yes, it's getting smaller.
It's getting smaller. Okay, but it's still going to happen, likely.
That's my client's hope, yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 60 Pulaski Street, map 53, lot 85. This was also continued from the 2/20/25 meeting.
John Kelty for the applicant. I would respectfully ask that that matter be continued. We recently, to the March 20th meeting, we recently were provided with a contract from Ty and Bond for peer review. I've delivered the signed contract and the check. If it turns out that the check is payable to the wrong party, we'll correct that. So that I would ask for a continuance as well.
Mr. Chairman, in the matter of 60 Pulaski Street, I move to recommend extension of time requested until March 20th, 2025.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is 10-12 Monroe Street, map 85, lot H2L. And this is an application by Joseph Salverghetto, seeking a site plan review to redevelop the property at 1012 Monroe Street by removing the existing pavement and construction a new 3-story residential building, 1 story of parking under the building, and 2 residential stories above.
Once again, John Kelty for the applicant, Joseph Salvaggio and the LLC. Joe Betancourt is our architect. I'm not certain that we're in a position to be at the end of this presentation asking for an approval, but we'd like to walk through many of the questions that were asked at our construction review committee meeting, which was held downstairs, and we're able to share with you our architectural plans, the direction we're going in, and how we purport to kind of match up and with the existing construction, the like down there. With that, I would bring Joseph Betancourt to the microphone.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Joe Betancourt. I'm an architect with a design studio at 14 North Central Street here in Peabody. We appreciate the opportunity to share progress with you this evening. And Drew, I think you're able to pull up the screen. Yeah, great. And you also have the hard copy. So this first slide shows our building, which you see in the circle in context. And just for orientation purposes, the Elm Street neighborhood is to the left, Wallace Street is up on top, Walnut to the right, and Central Street is to the lower right. We have three sort of basic design goals that are really important. Our first one is really the scale of our building. As you know, our site finds itself between two very distinct architectural scales. So to the left, the Elm Street neighborhood, those are all single-family, maybe two-family, but lower scale buildings. And then to the right, we have a much taller commercial building. And so our primary goal, architecturally speaking, is to really try to draw from the neighborhood scale, bring some of those characteristics onto our project, and really try to make this an extension of the neighborhood and not so much from the taller building across the street. We also want to improve the landscaping as much as we can. As we know, currently there really is no landscaping, so any opportunities that we can, we're going to add landscaping around, as well as trying to improve the public realm experience. So currently, there are no sidewalks on Hardy Street or Monroe, but our project is proposing to put a sidewalk on the Monroe court edge as well as the Hardy Street. And you get a sense of sort of the 35-foot scale. You know, ours is going to be somewhere between 40 and 45, and then the building to the right is about 50 to 55 feet. Next slide, please. So I just want to take a quick minute to acknowledge, any urban design opportunities that there might be. So every project has the opportunity to do something better for the surrounding. What's interesting about this slide is that there is a clear desire line from Elm Street all the way down to Peabody Square, and that pedestrian desire line actually traces along Monroe Court along our site. So we just want to acknowledge that that exists, because otherwise somebody's going to Wallace Street or somebody's going to Central, and that's an important pedestrian design line, and we just want to sort of respect that. This diagram also shows sort of the lower scale residential above Hardy Street and the much bigger scale on the south side of Hardy Street. Next slide, please. Just some images of some of the houses in and around the neighborhood. It's a beautiful little neighborhood. There are some houses that are very nicely detailed. And, we probably won't match all of those details, but we at least want to acknowledge, again, some of that texture, some of that grain, and really draw that into our project. The two views that you see on the bottom, the one to the left, that's the view looking down from Elm Street. So our site is at the bottom to the left. The view to the right is from Walnut Street. So again, our building will be visible and not prominent, but we just want to recognize that some of these desire lines and view corridors do exist and acknowledge that in the broader context. Next slide, please. So just quickly going through, again, you see the low, medium, and high scale. This image starts to show, sort of the landscape at the base conceptually, but the idea that the building is going to sit softly. It's not one solid base all the way around. We do have a variety of textures, so we'll have some screening that might be horizontal. We may have some fencing, and then, of course, where the building lands, it'll be more solid. You see some of the bays that we're starting to explore, maybe too many bays, as shown here, but the idea is to use the devices to bring interest and scale to the project. You also see that the two end pieces kind of jet out a little bit, and that's to acknowledge that they're starting to take on the scale of the single-family homes versus one long, solid facade. The roof, just one sec, Drew. The roof, we're looking at doing a mansard roof so that we can keep the scale down, and also use it as an opportunity to screen any mechanical that might be up there as needed. Next slide, please. So as we look at the ground floor plan, you see the two arrows. Those are the two primary access points into the building. The one to the left is the pedestrian access point, pretty much centrally located. Everything that you see in yellow is actually enclosed and secured. So as you enter through that front door, the elevators to the left, the stairs to the right, and then if you look at the plan to the right, that's actually an enlarged, more detailed plan that shows the package room, mailboxes. There was some good discussion about Amazon arriving and people calling Uber Eats, and that's just happening more and more. So, and then of course acknowledging that we do need some spaces for mechanical as well. So just a little bit more detail on that that plan to the right. And then in the circle, and it still needs a lot of work, but the idea that this entry piece could really be something a little bit more special to help break up the scale and really create some identity for the entry component of the building. Next slide, please. This is a typical upper floor, so the elevator and the stair at the lower part, those obviously go up. You see we have one centrally organizing corridor with 3 units on each side. Each unit is 2 bedrooms, and each unit is roughly 1,100 square feet. Next slide. And then just a few rough 3D views on the ground. Again, same talking points, but the idea of that landscaping and really trying to create an interesting edge along that sidewalk, utilizing some of the bays, and then again the hip roof, the mansard roof, to really bring that scale down. Next slide, please. This is a view from Walnut Street. It's not direct, but it's kind of close. And just, again, acknowledging that we do have sort of a placeholder start design for that central element. Not sure what it's going to be yet, but we do want to make that a little bit more special. And then the elements with the horizontal lines and some of the bays sort of tracing around the various facades to bring some scale and interest as we go around. Next slide, please. This is a view from Central Street, similar to what you've seen, but just to really show how some of the horizontal lines are trying to keep that scale down, some of the rhythm of the bays, just to create some interest along the facade. I do think there's a project that's happening on this side, just behind the car wash, so we won't get this full view, but at least the corner of Hardy and Monroe, I think we'll see that, and again, we'll try to do our best to make it interesting. And then there's one last slide, which is just a little bit closer. Yeah, and it's really just to talk about all of the opportunities we have to add some scale, texture, interest, and trying to keep it on budget, of course, for our client, but we'll push to do the best that we can. Thank you very much, and any questions, we're happy to try to answer.
Any questions from the board? Dr. Otto?
There we go, sorry. Can you tell me what the dimensions of the parking spaces on the ground floor are?
I want to say 9 by 18.
Okay.
We can follow up and get that to you.
Okay, thank you.
I just don't have that right in front of me. And our civil engineer is not here to answer that.
Yeah, through the chair. I guess I can touch on parking spaces. I counted 23, is that right? Or is it two per unit? Usually we get told what the zoning requires. And I counted 23 myself.
Yeah, I think we actually meet the requirements, and I apologize that I don't have the latest plan right here in front of me.
Okay. I don't exactly know what a design line is. I'd like to ask that. Is it where the zoning changes on both sides of this design line, or is it just a site thing? You mentioned it earlier. You had a drawing with a
Desired line is what he said.
desired.
Oh,
Your
you mean
second
the-
page.
Oh, the urban
Second page of your
design,
presentation. You got a red line with a yellow circle at the bottom. It's a design line, I think.
So it's a desire line.
Oh, desire.
It's just an urban design term that we use.
Okay.
Again, it's just to acknowledge that somebody walking from, let's say, Elm Street, they may choose that path to get to downtown. So we
Okay.
sometimes refer to it as a desire line.
I understand. Thank you.
And we just want to acknowledge that it's there, and we just...
Okay, never
yeah.
heard the term, thank you. And the last thing I have to say is that as far as the electrical goes, I'm pretty sure that everybody knows, because I'm sure it got brought up at the construction review, there are a multitude of problems with clearances, and they're not easy to fix. And when they're not easy to fix, that makes them expensive. So I just wanted to lay that out. Everybody understand that. Those poles have been there when there was leather factories all around it. They've been there for over 50 years, and it could become a big issue. So just want to put that on the record.
Yes, and thank you for that. We did meet on site, as you know, and I know that there have been some ongoing conversations with some potential solutions, and
Yeah.
it's definitely something that we have to address. It's very close to the
There's no
building
doubt
facade.
about it. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Have a, go ahead.
Really quickly, the plan shows that there are 9 by 17 spaces underneath, so 9 feet by 17. The zoning requires they be 9 by 18. So, Jack, you might want to talk with Mr. Sparagus about making that known on the plan to get the parking spaces. Make sure they're 9 by 18. And then the other point that I want to put out here was, as Attorney Kelty mentioned, they're not, well, I don't believe they're looking for action tonight from the board, but I did mention at the construction review and discussions that we had that this would be a great opportunity to bring this project before the board this evening, present it, and have the board ask questions, present any recommendations that they might have this evening to discuss with Attorney Kelty as these plans are finalized or if they need to be revised going forward. This is being reviewed by Bob Langley, and he is looking it over. So he has the files, he's reviewing it, and I'm sure we'll receive some sort of review memo from him regarding this project.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda is appointments. Any,
Jack, you want to say something, Attorney Kelty?
One of the questions that had come up with respect to Hardy Street was how are we going to build this? Where do we have a lay-down area that was and staging area? And we've begun conversations with our next-door neighbor, George Glennis, who has that large open area, and he's amenable to entering into a discussion about staging. We did have a similar conversation with a recommendation from Lucia Del Negro that we should be careful that the staging area be above the protected elevations, and there are considerable areas of that land adjacent to us that are above the elevation, and we could therefore simply provide notice to the Concom. So, and the other issues, I think Joe mentioned that we're working on a series of issues with respect to deliveries and creating an appropriate area for the deliveries to be made to. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Calti. Next item on the agenda is appointments. Any questions on the letter from Paul Diassi, manager of Peabody Living LLC? Hearing none. Stonegate subdivision, as-built and street acceptance plans.
Do we, through the chair, and to the chair, do we know where Public Works stands with finishing their review?
Mr. Chairman, I can help answer that. I spoke recently with Mr. Nicholas over at DPW. They are in communication with Mr. DiBiase. He submitted a letter kind of outlining all the final items in which they need to review. And then what I've spoken with Jim, it seems like they are finalizing this review. And I think everyone is hopeful that we will be getting some sort of answer by the March 20th evening. There is a point that's brought up. There was a memo from Brian Grant from Forestry, though, in that the trees, it's winter. He's not going to go out and review the trees and get them now. So he's going to wait till spring. So there was money that was held back for that. I forget if Mr. DiBiase filed a letter asking for continuing or not, but I do have an email that I received this week from Mr. DiBiase where he asked to be on the March 20th agenda for this.
You could take a motion on that, please.
Move to place Mr. DiBiase on the next agenda for the next meeting of the 20th of March.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Subdivision board action, none. Correspondence, zoning board appeals decision dated November 19, 2024 regarding 218 Newbury Street. Anything on that?
Mr. Chairman, this was just at the last meeting. This was initially approved, but somebody had asked about a ZBA approval that they had received. Since then, just submitting it after that approval.
Memo from Jack Nicholas, engineers of the city, Peabody, dated February 26, 2025, referencing 60 Pulaski. I think we were through that. City council, nothing. Other matters properly before the board? Anything, Drew? I'll accept the motion at this time.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.